Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're going to give it about 2 minutes just to let people come on in, get comfortable. Feel free to tell us where you are coming from in the Q&A. Love to say hello, and hopefully some of you guys are getting some sunshine after all the snow we've had this winter. We have blue skies and sun, and it makes me so happy. Sydney, BC. Dale, I don't think you have to worry about snow. Brantford, Ontario. Hello, Alicia. Michael, welcome from Regina, Saskatchewan. Hello, Melissa in Calgary. Nancy from Burnaby. Alicia in Edmonton. You guys are as excited about today as I am. Ruth from Lethbridge, Bianca, Two Hills, Alberta. Rod, traditional lands of Wengan speaking people. I hope I said that correctly because I have not heard that before. Donna from Toronto, my old stomping grounds. Maxine from BC. Ruth Ann from Cordis. A little bit more towards my way, Ruth Ann. I'm in Trenton, for those of you guys who Alex, Nova Scotia, East Coast in the house. Mike in Sault Ste. Marie. Mike, what is your weather like out there? Have you guys been getting a lot of snow? Because I know I've been getting buried this year. More from Vancouver and Markham. Joanna and Philomena, welcome. Way too much snow. I'm so over winter. Somebody find me and buy me a beach. That's all I'm saying. And then Jennifer from Toronto. Awesome. Jordanos from Kitchener. I have family in Kitchener. Lovely area. Joe from New Brunswick. Rob, another warm day, high of 12 and cloudy. Rob, I need to know where you're from. I don't know anywhere that's 12 right now. Steve, hello from an unnaturally warm Edmonton. And Victoria, that would explain why. Thank you, Rob. Gotta love our West Coast people. All right, we are at 2 minutes after the hour. We're gonna go ahead and get started. I'm gonna take over some screen share here. So today we are going to be talking about working with ProTax when you're doing corporate T2 returns. For those who maybe haven't attended the other two sessions or don't know me, my name is Tanya Franelek. I am a professional services senior consultant here at Intuit. I've been here for about 7.5 years, but I'm also a bookkeeper and tax preparer by trade. I've run my own firm and have been doing that shtick for about 25 years. A little bit of housekeeping before we get going. This webinar is going to be 75 minutes, 60 minutes of instruction with about 15 minutes of Q&A. However, I have my colleague Luke on the call. He is going to try to answer as many of your questions as we go along. So please do not wait till the end. Feel free to ask what you need to as we're covering material today. There will be handouts and CPD certifications being emailed to you after this session within about 48 hours. And like always, please try to limit questions to the content we're presenting today. I know that a lot of people have lots of questions about ProTax and all the other different things, but today it's about T2s and ProTax, so we'd like to be able to focus on that. For the CPD, this will get you one CPD for today. And as mentioned, it will also be emailed out again by our events team. If you don't get them, email them and let them know, but give it till about Friday. So this is our agenda for today. It's going to talk about the different ways to engage with ProTax when preparing a corporate return, whether your client has QuickBooks Online or not. We'll be talking about ways to expedite your return by using autofill and some other features, how to deal with the attach a document and other types of scenarios as well. So let's start off with tax mapping AT2. Now, when we talked about this in our intro to ProTax a couple of weeks ago, and your client uses QuickBooks Online, this is the great way to be able to map your Giphies using their QuickBooks file, using the work papers function, and then being able to import that information or start a return and have your schedule 100 and 125 being auto-populated for you. So I'm just going to quickly go into product for a second, okay? I don't want to get too deep into this, but if I go into my work papers file here from the top, this is an accountant only feature. So even though you see it inside a QuickBooks Online file, it cannot be visible to any of your clients unless someone is logging in as an accountant user. On the left navigation bar, we see something here called Books to Tax. We have work papers. And although there are a bunch of different sections, really after everything has been moved around, when we go into this income tax tab here at the top, this is now where we can choose our corporate return. It will automatically map some of the Giphies based on the account name, detail type, account type, etc. Try to guess where it wants to go. And you may at the top even see some unmapped accounts where we can assign a tax line, or if something has already been assigned, we can edit it using this pencil. We can click in this field and either start typing the Giphy number or the name, and it will be able to change that for us, okay? This is going to tell us where in those schedules that is going to end up landing as far as the total, and pre-populate your corporate return for you. Now, when we are working with ProTax corporate and work papers, okay, so your client has QuickBooks Online, you can actually start a new return from within that work papers section. You'll see highlighted on your screen as a start return and ProTax button. And then that is going to create a new return and allow you to have the Giphy mapping already populated, okay? So if I go back in here, if I scroll up to the top, we will see here that start return in ProTax. And this is now going to take me to the ProTax section, and it will start off and auto-populate that fiscal year for me based on the information that's inside that QBO. Notice it also fills in the client name. This here had it for Work Papers 2022. So again, some of my information may not be accurate during this webinar because of course they're test files, but notice it's automatically selected this data source as being the Giphy mapping. And it allows me to see that trial balance summary of, you know, what sections do I have? What are my Giphies? What are the Giphy codes? And then also what are the titles? And then what I can do is hit my continue button and it will end up bringing that information into QuickBooks Online, okay? When I do that, it's going to automatically take me to the info page so that I can continue filling out any other information that is necessary for that company. So I'm going to start this one because I want to be able to show you what this ends up looking like, okay? When I hit the continue, it will finalize this create return. It will now load my ProTax T2 module. Notice it's already picked out the module at the top. We're in my general information. That legal name, again, has come over because of my settings in QuickBooks Online. And now I can continue going through some of the other information. If I go to my Schedule 100, I will see the values and the Giphy codes where they need to be inside both my Schedule 100 as well as my Schedule 125, which is not as easily visible. I need to click on this details. And then when I come in here, I will see some of my totals and then some of the other expenses also calculated. Now, what you will notice on here is there's a little blue line in some of the fields. Just so you know, from a workflow perspective, these are calculated fields. So it's pulling in information from other sections of the return. And so just visibly, it lets you know kind of, hey, I don't have to put anything in there. If it's blank like this is a field where I can enter data and change it if I need to. Now, if you haven't already done so, right, you may want to send your client something like an engagement letter as part of your workflow when setting up a client for the new tax year. And you will want them to also grant you access to their corporate information as it appears on their CRA website. So inside ProTax, we can go ahead and add an engagement letter to the T2 by using the quick bar to go ahead and search for that compilation engagement letter, and then we can select the letter. So here I am. This is my little quick bar up here at the top, and I can say compilation engagement letter. I don't have that particular one here, so I might have something called an engagement letter. Here we are. There it is. It's called a T2. So now I can go ahead and see things that are relevant to the engagement letter and choose the appropriate one. When I select that, notice it gets added here onto my left, and this is going to pre-populate. Now this one here is a dummy file, so there isn't any information here, but if you wanted to edit the content of either ones that Intuit has already provided you with some of those templates, or if you wanted to customize them, that can be done from the letters section in QBO you can go to the accountant tools, or underneath your tax settings, you can find letters there as well. And then if you wanted to, preview it, right, you can also go ahead and see what it is. Now, the benefit of the letters is these templates have placeholders and variables that will pull from specific files to populate with that company's information, right? So things like the company name or installments, based on the return. And so depending on what it is that you're preparing, you can always edit and modify those variables, as well as ensure that you maybe have different templates for different types of companies, right? Based on the information that they want. And you can save those templates individually as well. So because also you would need your client CRA authorization, right? You can also go ahead and request the business consent. You can still file that, even though CRA made changes this past year as of July, that you can't file an auth a rep for a T1. You can still e-file the business consent through the tax software. If you don't know what that is because you're not quite sure, and maybe you're brand new to taxes, which always happens, we always have new people, there is a CRA website that you can go to that tells you about how to get and give authorization for business accounts and all that good stuff. The other thing that you can do is from within QuickBooks Online, you can also go ahead and use Intuit Sign to obtain the electronic signature for that, which we covered in the Intro to ProTax session. But if your client, for whatever reason doesn't want to do electronic signatures, once you enable that form, you can enable the printing and e-file of it by ticking the box. But you can also, under the return actions column, go ahead and print that form or letter to be able to obtain a hard copy signature from them as well. Or if you're already using a different type of digital signature collection, then you can also, upload that through a PDF and be able to use that there as well. Once they have signed it and it's been added to the left nav, under the e-file menu, you'll notice the business consent for under forms becomes activated for you to be able to go ahead and directly e-file that with CRA, okay? And so also I wanted to point out here that there is the ability to import the work papers Giphy if you have carried forward the file. So when we talked about starting that return from work papers, you really only want to do that the first time you have started a return for a client. For future years, you're going to carry forward that file, and then you would go ahead and take that Giphy file from work papers and import it directly into the return. So let's pause there for a second because I want to show you what the difference is, right? If I go back into my T2 corporate, here I have that same return. Under the actions menu, I have the ability to carry forward that return, right? Carry forward is obviously very different than import. It brings over some of the basic information. So things like their address, their fiscal year for the next year, their company name, business number, etc., as well as balances that would have carried forward that need to continue on with the next year's return. So if I go back into that work paper section, and I've already done this once, and now I've carried it forward. So let's say you used ProTax to prepare the 2024 fiscal year return. We're now working on fiscal year 2025. When I'm back in my work papers section, there are two ways to be able to get that Giphy file for additional years, right? The first way is to go underneath my books to tax action, and you'll notice here there is export the Giphy file as a standalone file. If you have the ability from here to choose where it's going to be saved, go ahead and do that. It may go directly to your downloads folder. That's okay. Just know exactly where it's being stored. The second way is to download this work papers pack. So this is sort of the backup of everything in your work papers for that company for that tax year, right? In there, underneath the taxes, I think, folder, there is a GFI file, which is the Giphy file, and it is standard across all accounting software to be able to import into any of them. That is the same file as this, where you would then go into our return and follow these instructions, going to the import work papers Giphy, upload the file. The same sort of situation happens as starting. You'll still see the mapping and everything that's there before you officially import it, and then it will bring in. All right, so as I mentioned, because we used QuickBooks Online's Books to Tax to export that data to ProTax, we will see that Schedules 100 and 125 have automatically been populated. Now, these here, of course, are PDF versions of those two. So if I went back into my tax file, go back to my accountant section, there is a way to see that PDF version, right? Visually looking at ProTax, of course, it is extremely different than most tax software, which are form-based. We are now dealing with line-based because we're leveraging technology to complete a lot of that information for us. But visually, of course, this is very different. And we want to find something that's familiar to be able to verify our work a lot of times. So here, if I went down to my Schedule 100, for example, we saw what this looked like when I'm choosing this data input button. Now, if I go into my PDF form, this is now generating what I would be seeing in something like Profile or other tax software, or even, having from the CRA forms, okay? So this is what we're looking at. You can always double check the figures here. It's a great way to just quickly scan it because we know exactly what that layout's supposed to be like. Now, there are going to be things, of course, that we need to still add to our T2 return. When we start that return, whether it's from scratch or from work papers, it's only going to give us the absolute basic forms that are required to e-file that return, right? So other things are capital assets and CCA that need to be reflected on a T2. And so we'll need to add those things, things like the Schedule 8 and the Schedule 8 class. In this image, you'll notice I'm using the Add Forms and Letter button to be able to search for it. Anything with a similar name will come up. So we even see here like our supplementary, and then it will add those to the left nav for additional slips as well, okay? Now, let's go into this file. I obviously do not have them here. I can do one of two things. I can use the quick bar at the top, which for me, honestly, is like the preferred way to do it. Only because not only am I searching forms and letters, but I can also search actions with this quick bar. So things like printing it or duplicating it or any other types of things I'm trying to do. The other option is going and using this button here at the bottom to add forms, slips, and letters. It's almost exactly the same, except now it's limiting me to just forms and letters. So if I looked for my Schedule 8, for example, all of my options come up and I don't have to, do one at a time. When I click this plus add button, it's going to tick it off and select it, okay? And so if I did the same with my Section 8 class, I can then change this search for another document that I may need as well. And it will remember these tick boxes, right? So don't be afraid to look for multiple things. As long as this little checkbox or check mark is here, then when I'm done, I just hit add return, and we'll notice that now they have been added to the left nav bar with my section 8 and my section 8 class. And then I am able to go ahead and get into those forms. Okay. So the workflow with ProTax is to start with that section 8 class, right? First. And there we want to go ahead and indicate what the percentage is for that class and what code. And then for each asset, we're going to enter the details of the addition, right? Or of prior year undepreciated capital cost as well. And so this example here is illustrating how to record the addition of a class 10 asset. I do have a file with a little bit of information in here. So I'm just going to switch this into my NewCo Inc. Notice I have quite a few little dummy files and it's not readily available. So here I can also go ahead and do a search and it will bring me to that return quickly. So on the left data input screen, as soon as this loads, we will have our Schedule 8 class. And you'll notice here that we have, usually there will only be item number 1 with details. So if you do have multiple assets, you can always add new and it will add additional lines for you. If you've made a mistake and gone a little click happy like I'm usually want to do, simply click the little trash can and it will delete that line for you. To see the details of that and to complete the Schedule 8 class, it will now take us into the information and we simply choose what information we have. Again, we have some calculated fields, right? So notice here on box 14, I have a value. It's calculating based on the information in my info, what province, as well as it's moving it into other different parts. There may be things here like adjustments that have this little up arrow. This is a jump link. So if I click on this, it will take me to the portion of the return where that information is originating from for me to go ahead and see where exactly it's going. ProTax is then going to take the information from that Schedule 8 class and it's going to automatically send it into the Schedule 8 itself, right? So again, the information is going to flow from one form into another, reducing the time that you spend on manual entry, as well as allowing you to be more efficient and ensure that everything is accurate. And so the Schedule 8 is going to be where ProTax is going to calculate the capital cost allowance amount. And when we look at this screenshot here, we see that the Schedule 1, or sorry, a quick peek at the Schedule 1 is going to show us that ProTax has correctly handled the amortization and the allowable CCA amount as well. So if I come into here and I go into my Schedule 1, we will notice again, calculated fields. We have the jump link that's going to take us to the source of that information. And as I scroll down a little bit further, we start seeing some of those values from that Schedule 8 class and Schedule 8 automatically populating into my Schedule 1. So when we open that, as you can see underneath the amortization, it's already done it for us, right? Again, dummy files on my side, so I don't have a lot of information, but this is a great screenshot to show us that, hey, there's my total income loss, and then there's my amortization portion as well. You'll also want to complete certain key T2 forms, such as shareholder information, which is found on Schedule 50. Again, you can use that quick bar at the top to be able to open up that form and then go through and manually enter the information for all applicable shareholders. There's also your Giphy notes checklist. So if this corporation is using Giphy codes, right, you will want to complete Schedule 141 if that applies to you. Again, open it up, and then there's, in this case, this is a little bit different than what we've seen so far. There are check boxes that need to be sort of completed, and then enter in your prepare information if you are using those GIFEs as well. If the corporation has received dividends, we want to use our Schedule 3 to detail those contributions. So in this particular example, we're going to use line 450 to indicate that the corporation paid out dividends of $5,000. So what happens now, this is probably a really basic T2, okay? But these are some of the main sort of categories and situations that you would need to know and complete in that basic T2, right? If there are additional types of forms and returns, or if you're not sure, one of the things that I've mentioned in the previous webinars is that ProTax allows you to generate 7 free returns without e-filing, to be able to kind of test it out and see if it is helpful for you, if it's going to serve some of like your more complicated clients, or do you need to segment who you use this for? The benefit of this is that if I look at my forms and slips, this is a great way to kind of scroll down. But if you click on this See Available Forms, this will actually take you to our webpage where we have all of the forms and slips that are available. There is a PDF that's currently outlined here that will open up, and you can see it a little bit faster instead of scrolling through a menu. So make sure that it is available and worthwhile for your clients. Now, I will mention that ProTax currently does not support Quebec in either French language or Quebec slips. So if you do have clients in Quebec, this is not going to be ready for you at this time. And I would strongly recommend that you also use those free trials to be able to test it with your most complicated tax scenario clients. The simple stuff, of course, we can do no problem. It might be getting into more complicated stuff. We do not do special election returns in ProTax for T2s. So that's also something to go ahead and keep in mind. And when I talk about the free trials, I do want to clarify that if, let's say, you used my business as your guinea pig for tax year 2024, and you came to the conclusion that ProTax is not really ready for you just yet, or you're not feeling comfortable enough with it, then next year, so now tax year 2025, you wouldn't start a brand new return for 2025 for my company. You would go back into 2024 and start seeing, you know, are there any enhancements? Is it going to work this time? If you created a tax year 2024 for me as well as a 2025, then that would count as 2 returns towards that 7 free returns, right? So just something to be cognizant of, really be discriminate, because there aren't that many returns, as to what does that client profile look like, right? Which are those complicated scenarios that I really want to solve for when going and creating those free trials. If you do want to take this through the e-file process, maybe you're like, hey, this is working for me, but I'm not sure I want to subscribe just yet. I want to see what the e-file experience is going to look like. We do have as well what are called one pays, where you can pay per return for the T2s, okay? This could also be helpful if you don't do a lot of T2s. Maybe your primary space is in the T1s. You know, and you only have a small handful of clients to do T2s. That also is a great alternate, instead of buying the entire subscription for unlimited returns, because it's more cost effective, perhaps. Okay. When your return has been fully completed, right, we want to kind of wrap it up. And so you will want to consult with our auditor that is built in and clear any outstanding audit messages. So you'll notice beside the forms or the data entry, there's an auditor tab in the little bubble. I'll just go into this return here. It will tell you how many messages you have in the auditor. And when we click on it, all of our auditor messages will come up. So here, if I click on my T2 and it tells me my business number is not valid, it will actually take me to that particular section of the return. I can go ahead and update that information with the accurate information. I'm a fast typer. I type probably about 100 words per minute. So I know a lot of us are great with our numerical keyboard. Sometimes we get our numbers mixed up. This is a great way to identify some of that stuff if you need to change. And so if I went in and changed certain information, then it will also go ahead and clear those. Similar to other tax software, the auditor does have things like issues, warnings, sign-offs, and overrides. So if I did want to go ahead and override it, it will end up showing up here. I did this line 150, for example, right? It has this information here. It's not going to necessarily be detrimental or prevent me from e-filing. After we've checked our auditor and cleared all of our messages, you'll probably want the PDF form of the T2 jacket just to be able to verify at a high level, make sure everything looks square. Some of you might even have, kind of different levels of people within your firm if you have some staff. So if you do have a preparer versus the reviewer or partner sign off, this also could help you as a partner without having to go through all the individual slips. Just generate that PDF form. Again, it's familiar. It's in a way that we would understand and be able to quickly skim through to ensure nothing is glaringly standing out to us or needs to be corrected. As I mentioned earlier, we also have the Intuit Sign, right? So getting that T183 and other necessary documents to go ahead and get the electronic signature. This again is not necessarily mandatory, but with ProTax, it is included as part of the cost of your subscription. So no harm, no foul if you use it or you don't. But when you notice in your return, there is this request e-signature button. That will pop up this CRA e-signature forms. Now, similar to this, the top two options on this screenshot have been ticked, but the other, and they're kind of like a darker font. So if I come in here and I go to this request e-signature, in my example, only my T183 is able to be clicked because I do not have the business consent added to this return, okay? So unlike other software, I know for any of you who maybe are using Profile, I can choose a bunch of different forms without them having been part of the actual return itself. ProTax is a little bit different. It will not allow you to obtain the signature unless it finds it in the forms section underneath your data entry left nav bar, okay? And so this will end up taking you through a wizard, and I won't go too deep into it because we did cover it in the intro, but basically you can go ahead and send these off. Now, a big question that I usually get about Intuit Sign, I can't remember if I dealt with this before or not, but a lot of people are like, can I get the actual return itself signed off? Technically, no, not using it from this e-signature forms pop-up menu that we just saw, but what you can do is print it off to PDF and then go ahead and put in the placeholders of where the customer's signature and any date fields need to be placed, and then you can send it off through Intuit Sign that way. All right, after you've got the client's signature on that T183 and you're ready to e-file, simply go to the e-file button inside the return and click on the T2 Federal. That will allow you to go ahead and transmit this directly to CRA, okay? Now, if you are a first-year filer, this becomes a little bit different in the workflow because, of course, they're first-year filers. So the first thing to note is that when you start that return on the filing page, there is a question asking whether or not this is the first year of filing for the corporation. You're obviously going to want to say yes here, and then it should default to no in subsequent years. When I look at my auditor, the other thing is that you will know it's going to make sure that you have the warnings to fill out your Schedule 24 as to the type of corporation, information, etc., as well as the Schedule 101 with the opening balance sheet, okay? So you want to make sure that you don't always ignore warnings, right? But read through things carefully to ensure whether or not this is something that needs to be completed. In the case of first year filings, this will automatically be here if you don't go ahead and go through and prepare everything properly. Now, I know we focused on T2 people who are using ProTax with QuickBooks Online clients, but what happens if you're doing a tax return for somebody who's not using QuickBooks Online? That's okay. ProTax handles that as well. Now, you noticed here, this is just a screenshot just to remind you of the dashboard and kind of the settings that you have when you start up ProTax. In this screenshot where the number 1 is. We have a green underline underneath our T2 module. You saw me search for that client name where box number 2 is. But the more you use this and over the longer period of time, of course, this dashboard of all your existing returns is going to get busier and busier. So another helpful thing is, what years am I looking for, right? Do I just want this particular year to kind of also get rid of some of the noise? We can also search by status. We have that create new return, and then of course additional actions underneath the actions column from the little drop down. Okay, things like carrying forward, duplicating, renaming a T2. Maybe you weren't happy with the way a staff member named the return, for example, or that Intuit did it if you were using QBO. The duplicate one had me thrown initially at first when I was first learning ProTax, because I was like, why would I want to duplicate a return? Well, let me tell you, when I'm doing these demos for you guys, that duplicate can come in handy. You may also want to duplicate it if testing out different tax scenarios for clients as well, and you want to use the existing information and just tweak it a little bit. You can also go ahead and delete it if you decide not to proceed with one version or the other. So just some ways to be able to leverage technology to do a lot of the work for you without having to manually do it again from scratch. Now, when your client is not on QBO, right, maybe they're using a different program altogether, or they've just given you some financial statements, you can just simply click on the Create New Return button in your dashboard. And that experience is going to be a little bit different than what we had before. Okay, so this is what the screen will look like, right? It's obviously pre-populated. So let's start this from scratch ourselves. I'm going to go into my ProTax T2. I'm going to get rid of this name here so that we see our dashboard in its entirety again. This is the Create New Return. Unlike when we were using QuickBooks Online and it pre-populated for us, this is now going to give you an absolute blank canvas. Now, if you have a client that you've used your own accountant version for as a client, their name may populate here already, even though you've never used QuickBooks or ProTax or anything like that. Maybe this is a brand new to you walk-in, first year, you haven't done anything with them previously. You can also just add that client name from here as well. Okay, so here I'm just going to go ahead and create one for our new company. And I have the ability to enter in whatever my fiscal year information is. So let's say we're going to do this from, what dates do I want to do? Let's do from May 1st, 2023. Let's do 3. Trying to do calculations quickly in my head, and that's not working out so good. Notice that my year end automatically calculates that 12-month fiscal period for me, right? Now I have the ability to give it an actual name. So we're going to say, Newco Inc. 2025. That might be as simple as you want. Maybe you want some additional information there. And then because we're not using QuickBooks Online Client, we can do 2 things. One, if we do have a client who's doing GIFIs in their corporate return, I can choose this upload a file. You can upload a GIFI from any text or CSV file. Okay, so if you had that you manually did it, no problem. Maybe you were doing them using Excel. I have heard of accounting firms doing that. You can go ahead and do that. If you are bringing it in from a competitor product, it's another great way to bring in that GFI file like profile, or you can also go ahead and start a blank return. Okay, so let's say I didn't know the company was going to be using GIFIs, right? This makes it really easy. I'm just going to say, you know what, go ahead. We're going to go ahead and continue. Even though I didn't choose the GIFI option at the time I created it, it doesn't mean I still can't use that option if I've made a mistake or there was a miscommunication or something simple. Notice in my data input, it has very limited forms and slips that are part of a blank return, okay? It would be the same thing that if you did a GIFI. This allows you to go ahead and then start adding the forms that you need based on that client's tax situation. But let's say they do need the GIFIs imported, right? And we didn't select it on the previous screen. We can go ahead and still add those from here. So under my return actions, I can go to upload a GIFI file. I'm going to go ahead and click my upload. And I'm going to go and find this information for myself, except that I don't remember where it is. So give me a second here. Sometimes you really have to pin things beforehand just to make sure everything is there in the right spot. Because this is why it's always important to remember where the heck you ended up saving stuff. So, all right. Found it. All right, here we go. So I have found my NewCo tax mapping. Okay, it's for a different tax year, but it won't really matter because I'm really worried about the information. As soon as I have attached that file, I got that confirmation that everything is there. Now, if I go into my Schedule 100, notice my values have automatically come in for me. Okay, so really, really easy, irrespective of if I do it at the first portion when creating that new return or whether I'm already in the return. Simply find that GFI file, drag and drop it in, or go through the whole browse computer thing and then bring it, and then all of a sudden it's here. If I look at my Schedule 125, again, here you'll notice it only has that one line item we spoke about. I click on details and I have the values that are showing up based on the Giphy information in that file. Okay. All right. If I was to do it from this upload a file portion, right, we would be able to upload at this stage as well. And then it gives me that preview of the Giphy information with the accounts, the codes, the balances, etc. So the benefit of doing it here is double checking it before uploading it from within. Even if so, I would always open up a text file, etc., and be able to kind of double check it just to make sure everything's fine. When using work papers, that allows you to know exactly where the information is coming from versus not. And so if you are bringing it over from somewhere else, I would use it from the upload a file because you get this preview screen and you can see exactly what those values are before automatically importing like we did from within the return. All right. So again, it takes you back to that info. It allows you to continue with the information and start preparing that return. Now, we also have autofill return inside ProTax as well, right? And so for those who might not be familiar, this is a service provided by Canada Revenue Agency, aka CRA. Similar to a T1 autofill, the T2 AFR lets you download the CRA information, mostly prior year stuff, into the T2 return. And if I click on this image, it will take me to CRA's webpage, and it will allow you to kind of find information again on what it will actually bring in for the T2 autofill and what kind of information you can bring in if this is something that is new to you. To access it from within the return and the return actions drop down, you'll notice in the import and export section, we have the CRA autofill my return. And so when we select that, it will connect us to the CRA services. You will log in with your REPA client information. It will confirm that there is a successful connection. You then choose the tax year. You'll notice in this third image, there are several bubbles with different tax years for that client. And then we can go ahead and choose which one, and then what accounts on the return as well. So you can select and deselect as necessary. Once that happens and it's brought in the data, ProTax is going to display the data import worksheet. And so this is going to show us some additional information. So where I have denoted the number 1, there's a little bit of a toggle there that allows me to only see the discrepancies. This can be helpful, especially if your client perhaps has moved business locations and they haven't updated CRA with it, but they've updated it in QuickBooks or in their in the file that you already have or carried forward. And so this is going to allow you to catch those in advance. If you need to go ahead and import the data, right? We want to select the accounts on the return and make sure the box is ticked where we have number 2. To view the discrepancies between CRA and the T2, you can click the little hyperlink under here by the number 3 where it says expand all, and that's going to show us the details down here at the bottom of the image. And then once everything else is really good, we simply click import selected, and then ProTax is going to confirm that the import has been successful. And then you can continue working on your client's T2 corporate return. Now, there are still a few more things that we can go ahead and do with ProTax, okay? There are, of course, the FRRMS, which is the Foreign Reporting Management System that is CRA required to be able to file certain forms like your T106, T1134, and T1135 to be able to report on the corporation's foreign involvement. And so part of this, ProTax lets you submit documents directly to CRA through the product, but you need to file those forms first, right? And so, and get a confirmation from them. And then once you've done that, then you can go ahead and e-file those forms. Now, I know I have this slide, but really I'm not going to use this one because I find that this process is a little bit more complicated than what this image here shows. It's actually quite, not complicated per se, but it's going to just be a little bit more tricky than a one image kind of screenshot. So I'm going to go into my work papers. I'm going to use this one here. Now, when you are in a corporate return, at the top here, we have sort of a summary to see what's happening with our return. We also have this documents paperclip, right? When I have that, depending on what I'm using, right, we will definitely see a ProTax tab here. So this is a great place to store any documents that you want with your return for your own personal backup type stuff. But this is also where you would need to upload the PDF version of whatever form that you are wanting to submit to CRA in a PDF format. Now, I've already done the upload portion, okay? And I have 2 forms down here. I'm going to just work with my 1135 today. We're going to choose select for submission, tick that form, and then at the top here, again, I now have a sort of little black banner with white text where I'm going to again select for submission. Behind that now opens up the document details, right? So what type of return type is it? What is my document type? I'm just going to choose other. And then of course we have slip. I can put in a document description if I need to. I don't have to. When I select next, it now is going to take me to the next tab, which is for CRA submission. Might just take a while because we're on Zoom. There we go. And if I expand my T1135, it will now show up in this section, okay? So it's kind of not really moved. It still stays in the ProTax tab, but this is the part now where any documents in these sections can be submitted directly to CRA for the confirmation. Once I start the CRA submission, it's going to send it off. And then after that, and I get the confirmation from them, then I can go ahead and be able to, then it's going to e-file it for them, right? The other option you can do is if I had it here on my left nav bar, I could go ahead and directly e-file as well, okay? So once that confirmation has been sent back, you come to the e-file, you choose the form, and then it will go off directly to CRA. See, this image just wasn't going to do it, was it? All right, so this is just kind of walking us through. Now, one of the things that I do want to call out on this screen is additional attachments. So if your client is using QuickBooks Online for their corporation Any information shared in the My Accountant space in QBO or that you have uploaded or stored in the work papers will also come through. So it ties everything nice and neatly into one place for our year-end accountants. And this can be extremely helpful a lot of times if maybe you have a different division within your company that is using QBO for the bookkeeping, for example. The challenge here is that this generally is going to pull in based on the QuickBooks Online accountant, right? So if you are the full cycle firm that is doing everything, you will have all that information flowing through. If you have asked for documents or the client hasn't done it and they're from a different firm, like bookkeeping firm, and I usually collaborate with accountants, it wouldn't cross from QuickBooks Online Accountant to QuickBooks Online Accountant, right? So because some of that, like the work papers section, is specifically for the QBOA that was using work papers, that bookkeeper or other person might need to send you that work papers pack for you to have that information, and then you can upload it here as well. When those submissions are done, you'll notice here as well, we have a submitted tab. And so anything that's already been submitted to CRA will show up there so that you're not duplicating work and you know that it's already been done, especially if you're not the only one working on a file. So in this example, right, underneath the work papers tab, we have engagement letters plus other documents that are ready, that have already been prepared for the client. The nice thing with this as well is if I click on any of those documents, it will open up in a annotatable PDF view. So for example, here, if I click on this one here as a PDF, right? Maybe I want to go to this one. Now it's going to open up in Adobe Cloud. If I need to, I can go ahead and highlight things. I can make comments or notes for myself, all that good stuff. And then it will save on that document as well. All right, so these were the tabs we already talked about. There were some additional steps here that we've already covered. Now let's talk about what other ProTax resources are available to you guys. So I know that this is really a lot, even though this has been a 3-part series. Some of you may not have attended all 3. And some of you also want to know, like, how else do I get help or find out more information about ProTax? So there's a couple of different ways. Inside QuickBooks Online, there is the general help. And so you could search for ProTax FAQs or frequently asked questions. It will give you some of the stuff that's come up that we have kind of curated in a support article. There is also our ProTax community and support, which is part of the QuickBooks Online community and support. You'll notice you can search for it here as well. Whether you're in product or you decide to bookmark this community and support, it's great for finding all kinds of different information. Even if you use the internal help, it's still going to link you out when you click on it. You can open it up in a different window, just have a bigger view instead of the little slide out drawer that shows up. But also a great way to ask questions from within the community. Events and webinars. So within your ProAdvisor, we do have some stuff, but there is also an events and webinars page on our website that lets you know what other information comes up. So some of you may have also found our training tour this way. There might be some other different things for next year. We'll have to see, but it's a great way to just keep learning about the ecosystem and how it integrates and be able to find out what's happening when and where. If you need additional information, especially if this is your first time looking at ProTax, we do have an included service that is available to you. It's called Assisted Onboarding. You can scan that QR code. Your account manager can also provide that information to you. What it is it is a one-on-one call with a ProTax expert. And this is to help ensure that you get answers to the things that you want. You want to make sure that all your I's have been dotted and your T's have crossed, and help you set up ProTax in the settings to make sure you haven't missed anything so that that first experience is going to be as seamless as possible. They can help you to import past files. They can answer questions about some of the features and functionality, and even some key tips and tricks for some of the smoother workflows. There is also myself, part of professional services, and we kind of deal more with sort of the workflow aspect of it, right? Getting advanced training and guidance. There is actually also a ProTax user guide that your account manager can provide to you. And so, if you want more information about how to engage with professional services after exhausting all other resources, please feel free to reach out to your account manager for more information. All right, so we are at the end of the content piece, right? That wraps up our T2 webinar for today. I am going to stay on for a bit and see if you guys have any additional questions. This would be the time now to use the Q&A, and we can get those answered for you as well. If there was something that needed more clarification, I'm happy to go ahead and demo that over again for you. And if you don't have anything else, please feel free, when you guys leave the Zoom, there is going to be a very short survey. I'm really asking you guys nicely as a member of the community to please make sure that you fill that out. We want to know not just how we did, but also what you found valuable or what else we can improve on. What were you expecting to see? And please add in as much detail as possible, because that helps us make sure that we're curating content that is going to be relevant to you and that is going to solve some of the knowledge gaps. I know when I first started in this industry, our accounting community is so supportive and helpful. And I bring that same heart and love to want to do the best and provide the best for you guys, so that, we already know tax season is a hard time of year. It doesn't need to be any harder. And so please make sure that you guys feel free to fill that out as well. Okay. All right. We'll give it another minute or two and see if any other questions come in. You guys are amazing. Thank you guys for attending. Are there any quick help links within the return? So, James, that's a great question. There are, if you're in a return here, there is the ProTax help here, right? This will allow you to go to the online help hub, which is the ProTax community. You can also start a chat with support, but really your auditor is your best bet for making sure that everything is sort of ticked off, right? For the most part, like, we're all familiar with how to prepare a tax return and what fields to fill out and understanding all that stuff. So there isn't anything currently in it. The other thing that you can do is use the feedback. It's not down there, it's up here. So underneath the gear icon, I believe there's a feedback button here that you can just make sure you're selecting ProTax. And that goes directly to our product team if you have any enhancement requests, etc. So those are kind of the best ways I know how to do it. Again, we do have a user guide that you can also download from the website. There's a training, a ProTax training hub that we've created, and in there is a downloadable version of it. Kind of covers everything that might help as well. Pearl, what is the best strategy for me to identify if the client needs to file certain schedules for foreign affiliates if they have a foreign affiliate? So that I don't think I can really answer, Pearl, because unfortunately I can't give you like tax advice. But I think that kind of goes hand in hand with just maybe consulting with somebody else who has more experience in foreign affiliates that might be able to help guide you. I can't stress enough how much of a positive impact mentorship has had on me and my own practice with other bookkeepers, other accountants, the collaboration, even when I'm not doing taxes and somebody else is, to really just learn all the time. It's funny because my 12-and-a-half-year-old is like, thinks once he's done school, he's done school. And I'm like, oh, son, if only you knew. And that's just kind of more or less, there's always something new to learn. As long as I've been doing this, I learned something new about being able to split T2125s between partners that are spouses the other day, right? So I don't think that we can all really cover every single tax situation. That's something, unfortunately, that needs to be investigated outside of this webinar. Now, Raj had said each client has a different chart of accounts in QuickBooks Online, but T2 line numbers are standard. Should we adjust the chart of accounts to align with the T2 line numbers? No, you should not, because the QBO reporting is a little bit different inside QuickBooks Online versus your tax, right? Look, this is a cloud program, right? It's always going to change. It's always going to enhance. I feel like being able to map those GIFIs at the chart of account level might help us be a little bit more efficient. But the benefit for this is that if you have different chart of accounts, you're only setting up that GIFI mapping once. Even in work papers, you have the ability to carry forward that work papers year over year. That GIFI mapping sticks, so you're not having to map it time and time again. So it's a one-time exercise for every single company. The only time I can think of where you would need to adjust that GIFI mapping is if they added a new chart of accounts that needed to be added to something that wasn't there before, right? Maybe they've got a new division, or they've got, a new subsidiary or something, right? That's the only kind of time that I would think that would need to be done. So although you're doing it for the company the first year that you kind of go through this, and again, there's also built-in machine learning and AI intelligence that's guessing a lot of it. So hopefully the majority of the time that mapping you see in that work paper section has, let's say maybe 75% got it right, and you're only having to kind of clean up 25% that first time, right? It's more about moving around the groupings to make sure that the chart of accounts are going to be in the right bucket, and then that bucket is going to get mapped, right? So that's another way to kind of look at it as well. So Denise said, I find that with more complicated returns, you need to know the schedules you need. Once you know the schedules, you can find the forms. Correct. Yeah. CRA's website is also a great resource. And, we keep talking about AI and all this kind of fun stuff. I got news for you. I've been playing a lot more with it. ChatGPT or something similar is your friend. Ask it a question. It's pulling from all over the web, including CRA stuff. You might want to validate and just double check that schedule on CRA's website to make sure that, ChatGPT gave you the right response. But this is another way to leverage technology to get a lot more efficient, especially if you're new to the tax game, because not only are there 101 things to learn about tax slips and forms, etc., it's also when do they apply into what situations, okay? Philomena asked, do we need to add Schedule 8 and Schedule 140 for each year or only for the first year? So you would need to add those every single year, right? But again, if you are doing it once, I believe that when you've already done it, because some of those calculated fields might be carryovers, when you carry forward that return to the next tax year after the first year you use ProTax, regardless of whether or not they're a first year filer or not, then it should already have those schedules and forms that you had the prior year and make them appear the following year as well. Okay. Can you confirm if there is a limitation of how far back we use ProTax to file past corporate returns? For example, I can't do pre-2018 returns. Is there a similar limitation? Right. Okay, great question, Denise. So yes, there is a little bit of a limitation on both T1s and T2s. T1s can go back to 2018 to current, okay? T2s actually go a little bit further back. So if I created no, this is not a good example. If you go into the work papers, it will go back to a 2014-15 year split if it's an off calendar year, or it will be a 2015 if it is on calendar year cycle. So another benefit to using work papers, just saying, if I come in here and I have the ability to choose my tax year, right? Now this one I believe is on a calendar year. So here I can go back to tax year 2015 and we already have 2026 out for corporates, right? If I had an off calendar, you would see 2014/15 here, okay? It's the same idea with our ProTax as well. So when you enter in, let's say you're not using QuickBooks Online, but you're just doing a client, you can go back to a 2014-15 year split ending in tax year 2015, okay? Abera asked, do you have to pay to have access to QBO Accountant to keep your records once you sign for T2? No. So you do not. This is good news. QuickBooks Online Accountant is a free access point for accountants. Okay. There are going to be some changes to it coming up in the near future, but there is always going to be a free version so that if you are just using ProTax to do those corporate returns, you would pay for ProTax, but accessing the accountant version itself will not be monetized. Okay. Is this software specifically for QBO clients? What if they use accounting software? Is there an import feature? Will this product not be applicable? Thanks, Rob. So similar to what I kind of said earlier, you don't have to use QuickBooks. It is easier and more efficient if you are, because it's just flowing that existing data. But if you are using, look, I know a lot of people have more complex needs. Some are still using Caseware, for example, for their compilations, right? So if you had somebody on Sage and you were using Caseware, right? Or you were using Excel, if you, as long as you have that Giphy mapped in a CSV or an Excel file, you can import that Giphy in here. Okay. So that is going to cover an abundance of different things. Caseware also will prepare that GFI file, right? Once you do the tax mapping, and you can bring that into QuickBooks Online's ProTax. Okay, so hopefully that has answered your question. And Ross asked, is there a help link to determine eligible versus ineligible dividends paid and how to record properly? I feel like Luke is answering that for you. I don't know if that's a calculated fields or not, or information. There's always enhancements coming, right? So again, like the best way to do this is to play with the product in those free trials. When I first started learning QuickBooks Online, I know it's not ProTax, but it's a similar thing. Like I would just, if you're going to give me something for free or a sandbox or whatever, that I can go ahead and test this out. It's a great way to ensure that you're constantly playing with it. Even if it's not right for you today, this is going to ensure that at least you're keeping a finger on the pulse, right? We know the technology is going towards cloud. Firms, especially those with staff, you guys are going national, if not North American. So, you're no longer being kind of strangled by your geography anymore, really, as far as like who you can get for a client, right? And it's easier to share, especially if you're hiring employees as well, or have clients in different provinces, even different cities, right? And so you can expect to see a lot more over the years from ProTax as well. I see in the subscription that Quebec forms are not available. Does it mean we can't use ProTax for Quebec companies? Yes, that is correct. I did mention that earlier today. At this time, it cannot support Quebec filing any slips or customers in Quebec. So unfortunately, that is something that is down the road and not available. So if you do have clients in Quebec, then this is not going to solve for that particular client. I find it also very interesting that the more accountants I talk to, the more they are using multiple systems as well. So, they might have T1s in one and T2s in a different program. So consider, just for ease of familiarity and learning, right? Who is a right fit for ProTax corporate returns and who isn't. And maybe run a couple of parallel programs side by side for a year or two and see exactly how that happens. Awesome. Well, we are almost at time, but I don't think we have any more questions. This has been a fantastic session, you guys. Thank you so much for joining today. I hope that you guys have found this valuable. And again, feel free to please fill out that survey. Let me know what you guys thought, what was good, what wasn't good. Be honest, I can handle it. I got thick skin, and I look forward to seeing you guys again soon. Have a great day, everyone. Take care.